What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review Podcast. I got a very special guest. This is PARADA. You would know him from The Offspring. I know him from Face to Face. I believe you played in other bands too, MCR for a little bit.
Yeah, I did a
lot of
tour of
drumming.
My Chemical Romance.
Okay.
They had opened for the last tour that Face to Face did in 2004, right before they blew up. So we got to be friends on that. And a couple years
Nice.
later, their drummer was injured really badly, and just his wrists were messed up. And they had a month in Europe, and they kind of called and were like, "Hey, can you fly out tonight, learn the set on the plane, and hit the ground running?" And so it was cool.
Wow.
Like I love those dudes. They're great guys.
So I'm at the exact age that when they blew up, I was like uber into hardcore, and I was just like, but like I had their CDs in my binder, and I was just like, I would jam them in the car. Didn't tell my friends, but like at 41, I don't really give a shit. I like the band's amazing, man. They're really good. But
Yeah.
So Pete here has a new band. If you're familiar with the channel at all, you will have seen what I'm talking about. It's called the Defiant on his t-shirt there. It's got Johnny Rio from Street Dogs, Dickie Barrett, Joey Briggs, Dickie Barrett from Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. I mean, this is like an all-star lineup of people, man. Like this is a band you should look out for.
Yeah, also Greg Camp, the singer
Camp,
or the guitarist, songwriter from Smash Mouth. So yeah, it's the five of us. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, he wrote Dead Language, so that's where you get that sound from. You're like, wow, it's just got that pop sensibility, but it's punk and it's heavy. Like it's cool. Like Greg is like a little secret weapon, just crafting songs all day, which is awesome.
My sincere apologies. I don't think I mentioned him in my last video. It was not on purpose. I knew that there was a member of Smash Mouth, but there's so many people and so many names, I just couldn't get them all organized. But that explains a lot about Dead Language, bro. Because like when I first heard it, I mean, that's the first, you saw the video. That's the first thing I was like, man, this is like really poppy, but like that's so smart when you want to have a message like this, to have like a song that has an underlying clear genre, but then you can put something in it that'll get it on airwaves and get it in people's ears, get it stuck in your head. Very good songwriting.
Yeah, it's a massive hook. I mean, Greg is a genius songwriter. So, when he brought this song to the band, we were all just like, yep, that sounds right. Let's start there. I think that was the first song once we kind of started talking about doing this that got thrown into the mix, and that got me excited from the get-go, because I'm like, oh, that song is killer. So, yeah.
Well, who did he write the lyrics to?
Yeah, Greg did the music and the lyrics on that one. Yeah,
he wrote the whole thing. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, because the lyrics are I mean, they're important. We're in a weird time right now, man.
You're telling me.
We're in a weird time because like the most important thing to me is my family, right? But right after that is it's punk rock. Like this is what I've done my whole life. But I took a vacation, came right back. Like I can't leave it. It's in my blood, right? So seeing the division that I'm seeing right now is terrifying, because it's something so important to me, and I would imagine you and Dickie and everybody in the band. And it's weird. I don't really know. It's become where we used to have like differences in opinion. Now we're like put in political classes, and I'm like, hold on, I'm not like this dude over here. Sorry, this dude over here.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the overarching message of the band. I mean, if anything, throughout song for song on the whole record is about unity. It's about bringing people together. It's, we're pointing out things that are happening in the world that we think are wrong, but we're not just screaming and complaining. It's like, these things are happening, but we can come together as people. We can find community again. And, even in Dead Language, like, don't be stuck on your phone all day. Get out in the world, have conversations with people. We don't have to be divided like this. And, I agree that it feels very divided right now in society, but it's really only that way online. When I'm out and I'm talking to people, like if you go talk to your neighbor, talk to this person that you don't agree with on stuff. When I talk to somebody that agrees with me on everything, I don't necessarily learn a lot. Like but so I would rather have a respectful discussion with somebody and hear their point of view. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to question my view. I'm going to, alter the way I look at things because of somebody else's perspective. And for some reason, it seems like since 2016, we've just gotten away from that more and more and more. The division has been awful. Really, for me, it culminated in 2020 leading up to that election. I would see people online yelling, well, if you're voting for Trump, just unfriend me now. Or if you're going to vote for Biden, like you're dead to me. And I'm like, why are you throwing real people out of your life that know you for these politicians or someone who doesn't give a shit about you,
Not even a
honestly,
little.
Yeah. And so it's like, wow, we get carried away. But when you're stuck in a bubble online and you're only looking at stuff that you think about and that you already believe, and you're just reinforcing this belief and this bias, then yeah, it feels like, well, I'm part of the team. I'm
Mm,
on the right side of things and whatever. And at that point, if you're getting swept up with the current, you'll go along with anything. I think
absolutely.
people need to stop and go, well, I don't necessarily disagree with all of this, but this seems weird, or this push is weird, or, I don't necessarily feel good about this. But I think we've turned into a culture of, the dangerous thing right now is the self-censorship. Like, people are like, well, I don't feel good about this, but I don't want to say anything because I don't want it to cost me something, or I don't want to be ostracized or, blacklisted. And cancel culture is just, it's so stupid, and it's,
Yes.
and everyone's afraid of it. But I will tell you from experience, the mob comes very fast and fiery, and they roll over you and they move on to the next person. Like, it's just every day we're waking up, who we mad at today? Oh my God, who are we
Yep.
canceling? And it's just disgusting. Like, that's no way to live. That's no way, like, your people are stripped of their humanity and their dignity, and they're down, it's stripped down to one line or one word or something they taken out of context. And now, well, you don't disagree, you don't agree with everything that we're pushing, so now you're cast out, you're bad, you didn't check all the boxes. And for anybody that's celebrating that or participating in it, if it comes for me, eventually it comes for you. Like, it,
100%.
and you see it, like, there's no, it's not, doesn't discriminate from person to person. It's just like, oh, you're not on board, you're out. You disagree with this, you're out. And so it's baffling to me that people would get on board with that, or celebrate it to any extent.
It's because they don't know the dangers of it. I was just talking to a buddy about the dangers of like echo chamber lifestyle, like where you go, oh, I don't like this, and then 15 people go, me neither, me neither, me neither, and you're like, oh, so cool. And then you have this like group of people that don't even really agree on very much, but this one thing, and suddenly they're real close. What do you think's going to happen when you really start talking? You're going to start figuring out, oh, we're not really that similar. Like, we just had this one. It's not a healthy way to maintain relationships.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll be honest, man. I was talking to a couple of people, and I was telling them that we were going to talk, and they're like, "Oh man, you think you're going to get any backlash because of Offspring stuff?" And I was like, "I don't care."
Yeah.
I never even crossed my mind, to be honest. I was like, why would I get any kind of? I was like, dude's awesome. He plays drums. Like, what are you talking about? And I just didn't even. No, I don't care about that. You don't like my channel for a guest that I had on. First off, you don't
Mhm.
have to watch the video.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
so
that's the
silly.
thing.
I talk to people. I work with a lot of people half my age at the theater, and we have a lot of conversations. And I'll tell you that there's some really intelligent people out there that are in their 20s,
Yeah.
and they do want to listen. I do want to ask your opinion on this real quick. So, in regards to like talking in person versus talking on the internet, maybe it's just me being a little pessimistic, but I feel like when you have how do I say that word? When you're anonymous, you
Mhm.
that's a word that I trip over every time I try to say it. When you have that, you can say whatever you want. And I believe that sometimes your true colors will come out a little bit. And when you're in person, maybe that won't happen. It's probably a gray area in the middle somewhere that, but it sure feels like we get a lot of honesty online because people are really mean. And maybe I'm just being pessimistic.
Yeah, I mean, you can call it honesty. I think it's just people get emboldened with their anonymity. There's plenty of people that like to show up on my posts and stuff and start slinging shit, or, just showing up to troll and be lame. And I don't block them. I let them go. Like, I'm a free speech guy. I'm like,
Yeah,
I will defend even your speech to show up here and say crappy things about me anonymously. Go nuts if that's how you want to spend your time. But
that's true.
to me, it's, if you have something to say and you stand behind it, like, put your name on it. If you feel that strongly that I'm wrong about certain issues or whatever, then come bring it to me as yourself. But if you're just some anonymous troll hiding online, like, I don't have time for that. Like, you're welcome to show up and spew your nonsense, but I don't have to engage with it. And I think
Yeah.
in the general population, when you're out in the world, people aren't that mean in person. People aren't crappy when they actually have to look at the person, but we've dehumanized everybody online. Like, you know, we've stripped them of their humanity, and it's just like, well, I'm just going to drop bombs. This is fun. Look at me
Hmm.
shit all over this thing. And in person, you know, people don't tend to do that because there's,
You have repercussions for your words in person.
yeah,
So, and that may not be like any kind of like hand-on stuff, but you know, if you say something really mean to me and my face changes and you see that it hurt my feelings, most people are going to be like, "Oh man, maybe I shouldn't have said that." And
yeah.
online, like you said, they don't have to deal with that. It's look, I make a lot of my living online, so it would be hard for me to make some serious changes. But if we were all going to band together and say, "Let's make these changes," I'm in for it, man. I would rather wash dishes than be mean to people. So, and I've had entire subreddit threads about me a couple years ago. Well, you talk about hard to deal with and emotionally taxing. Like, and I didn't even do anything wrong. I made a shirt for an artist that I liked. I thought it would be cool to share with the fandom. So I did. And then they called me a thief and that I was stealing from a dead guy. And I was like,
Mm.
dude, I screen printed 5 shirts in my garage. What are you talking about?
I'm
And they're
not
like, yeah, but
selling them.
well, I did sell them, but like at
Okay.
cost. Like I was like, hey,
Yeah.
it cost me like $12 to make this. So give me the $12, I'll ship it to you. Like it was not, I just didn't want to lose money. It wasn't like I was like, hey man, $35 and I got 1,000 of these. No, I made five.
Right.
One, they were for me. And somebody
Right.
asked me for one. And then I was like, oh yeah, sure. It was like $12 here. And like, yes, did I accept cash for one? One. Would I have given them for free if they asked? Yeah, I've done it many, many times. But like, it was just such a weird interaction. And I just was so surprised
Well, the
that they
outrage
were so
mob,
mad.
yeah, the outrage mob shows up for anything. I mean,
Mhm.
they don't care and they don't look into it. They don't give it any thought. It's just like, "Oh, look at this thing. Well, I can twist it to, you know, make this person out to be whatever I want." And I guess it gives people a feeling of superiority to run around
Yeah.
super self-righteous, like, "I'm right about everything. You're so wrong, and here I am with all the reasons why you're terrible." And it's it's just so boring.
It
That anyone spends their time doing that on a daily basis. But I'm sorry you went through that too. Like,
oh,
you know, any kind of cancellation stuff, it's just
I learned from it. You know, I learned some things not to do maybe, and I emailed the kid that started the whole thread, like personally, like, hey man, I why are you so mad? And I was like, dude, I'm not making a profit from this. I was like, are you? Because he was like, well, you're profiting off a dead man, and I'm like, I mean, have you ever seen Nirvana shirts anywhere or Elvis Presley stuff, the Beatles stuff? I said, I'm not a machine. I'm a guy in a garage. I made a handful of shirts. Like, I was like, did you want a shirt? And he's like, huh? And I'm like, because if you wanted one, you could have just said, like, I don't have the money. Can I have one? I'd have said, yeah, what's your address? Like, I'm a punk rock kid, dude. Like, I don't care. I'll
uh,
give you whatever it is that you need. It doesn't matter to me. It's a hand screen t-shirt. Like, I don't know. It was
mhm.
so strange, man. Like, yeah,
Well,
it
and
was a
that
weird feeling.
people, instead of coming to you personally or emailing your website or whatever and saying, "Hey, I don't like what you're doing with this," you know, to just go, "Well, I'm gonna make a public spectacle out of this." Like, that's again, that's another disconnect from community and having conversations. It's like, go what happened to going to a person one-on-one and going, "Hey, I disagree with what you said," or "Can you clarify this?" or "I've got some questions about what you're doing." But instead, it's
Right.
just like, "Oh, I'm gonna light this dude up. Oh, I
Yeah.
look at me
And
go."
that's
And
exactly what it is. It comes from a troll lifestyle society. What do you want to call it, man? Like it's like a thing, you know, it's a thing that people like to do. To troll people is fun, and I'm guilty of it too, picking on my buddies and stuff, lighting them up. But it's like I know these dudes; they're my friends. I do it in the privacy of a 4-person text thread. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
but like it is become like a sport. Let's see how much I can embarrass this dude. Let's see how much I can make him feel bad. And you know, it's that's just mean. Like that's all it is. Just
It's
stupid.
mean, but it's creating this culture where it's mean and people feel good about being
Excuse me.
mean, you know, because it
Right?
gets reinforced by the other people that wanna jump on the pylon and the mob because it's like, "Oh, look, it's fun. Look how fast we're taking this person down." And, you know, all you're doing is stripping them of their dignity, and for what? Like, what did you get out of it?
Well,
You get a trophy in the mail for destroying somebody?
I mean, thank goodness they don't. So so you know the thing people talk about how when you post a picture and you get a like, you get a dopamine hit.
Mhm.
It's the same thing, just in a negative context, but they don't see the difference. So, like, let me post a video of me covering one of your tracks. I get a, you're like, oh, that was awesome, dude. And then I get a feel good from that. So then I want to go out and I want to learn more music, right? Or I can go, this dude sucks. And then five people go, yeah. And then you go, oh, so he must really suck. It's like,
Right.
man, find the create. If you're going to utilize this technology like that, find there's always a positive way to do
Mhm.
something like online. I'm an advocate for online lifestyles. I get it. There's always a way to do it in a positive light, I feel. And nothing's perfect. So you have to know that. But
But
I
the
mean,
negativity can be overwhelming though, and that's where it goes off the
very,
rails. Yeah.
yes. And well, I mean, look at what happened with, I would imagine that if we didn't have that kind of culture, the stuff that happened with the offspring might not have happened,
Yeah.
because that was a weird situation. And I don't know if you want to touch on it or not. You're welcome to if you'd like, and we can skip it if you want.
No, I'm
But I
fine,
mean,
whatever.
that's gotta be weird, man, to be in a band for so many years and then have this situation to where before we talk, I already knew that how it happened. I already knew you had a medical exemption and it was unnecessary, and they still decided to drop you from the band, and then they went and they toured and they did all the things that you could have done, and you
And caught
none of
COVID without me.
that's
But yeah, I mean, it's the whole last couple years, like you know, I get a lot of people online that are like, "Well, you got to be mad, you got to want vengeance and this and that." And
mm,
it's like I don't carry anger around for that stuff. Like I have a lot of compassion for everybody over the last couple of years doing whatever they felt that they needed to do.
mhm.
People wanted to get back to work. The industry had a weird bell to unring of getting on board, telling everyone to stay home. It's not safe out there. And then all of a sudden wanting everyone to come back and bring your money and buy tickets and t-shirts and clap for you. So, the solution they seemed to find was, well, we'll create the fully vaccinated tour. Like everyone has paperwork. We're all safe. We're all this or that. So we're not bad people for going back on tour. Now, some bands mandated it on their audiences, and that was rough. Like out of the gate, Foo Fighters had those stick it or no ticket shows. That was hard to watch. You get people like Adele going, no one can come to my shows without their paperwork and stuff. But most bands left it up to the venue, so they mandated it on their crew and their band members, but not their audience. So how are you promoting health and safety of saying, well, we're all fully vaccinated up here, and you are all out there sweating and breathing and screaming all over each other, and this makes sense? Like to me, the whole thing was just like, well, have it make sense for any of this to
Yeah.
matter if you're going to mandate this kind of thing. So yeah, it was disappointing to have my run with them end like that, just so abruptly, in like it was like a fire sweeping over the plains, and then it was over, and it was like, wow, that was crazy how fast it went from everybody's family, we're all in this together, to radio silence, I'll never hear from you again.
Dude, good
And
grief, man.
so that was part of the thing of me even putting a statement out was, number one, well, I'm out of a job. I need work. So I need to let people know. Number two, they're going on tour, and I'm already getting hit up by people for tickets to these shows that I know I won't be at anymore. And I don't want to have this conversation 1,000 times. And number
Right,
three, I wanted to show what was happening in the industry. Like, obviously, I'm not an isolated incident. I'm one of the few
right.
people that said something, but this was happening all across. All kinds of band members and crew members were getting, losing their jobs, getting forced out, and just kind of went quiet, waiting for things to die down and come back. And, a bunch of people went and got fake cards. I was
Mm,
offered a fake card,
mm.
but it doesn't seem right. Like if
No.
you're doing that and you're getting on board with everything, then now my voice is gone. Now I have no voice, and I have to just sit here and go along with everything. And
Well,
the biggest thing for me was to show, I've got two daughters, and to show them there's no opportunity, there's no job, there's no, income, there's nothing like that is worth you doing something that is wrong for yourself and your body. And if I can't stand up here and show them that, then I don't know how they stand up for themselves later on in life. And hopefully they don't get faced with a situation like this, because enough people stand up and say, no, we're not doing this. Right now there's a whole thing bubbling under that there's this new variant in Canada and it's all headed our way and we might be bringing back masks and go get this new booster. And I'm just like, how many people are going to go along with it this time? And how many people, are going to say, no, you know what? You got me last time. I'm not doing it again. So it's going to be an interesting couple months coming up to see how this all shakes out. But yeah, to go through that
Agreed.
experience and for it to be very public, like I wasn't trying to, I didn't say anything bad about the band. I was just trying to let people know, look, I'm looking for work. I can't get this shot. Stop saying that we need to all do this for the people with medical exemptions who can't, because I'm showing you that it doesn't matter. I'm showing you that they're not accepted. So, when everyone's like, well, we've got to do this for all the people who medically can't get it. And you go, oh, I'm one of those people. And they're like, no, screw you. You have to get it too. Like we're not talking about you. We're talking about the nameless, faceless people who can't get it. And
It's
so,
crazy.
yeah, it was crazy. And none of it made any sense. And it was really just a disheartening situation to go through. But to come out the other end of it with this new band, with all these people who I love and I respect and I care about, like this last year of working on these songs and making this record and getting to know people has just really, been a life change that I definitely needed. And, I wouldn't have gotten through any of it certainly without my wife and my daughter's support.
Yep.
And it was neat to see at the time, like the people that ran from me pretty quickly and the people that ran towards me. And that's when like who your real friends are and who people are that are like,
Yes.
no, I know this person. I understand this person. They're getting torched publicly. I don't have to distance from them just to not get any ick on me, So the people that stood by me and have stood by me, it's made this much more rewarding to finally get this first song out and get this band off the ground after talking about it for so long. Like, you said, you've been waiting 6 months to hear this
Yeah.
song and we've been trying to get it out as fast as possible. It's just all
Well,
these things. Yeah.
you saw the thumbnail, man. Worth the wait was like, that's the first thing I thought of. And I was like, oh, I got to put that on the thumbnail. Like, that'll grab some attention. Like, the photo, big ass red letters, that'll get somebody to go, well, what's the wait? And you hear it and you go, oh, dang, that dude's right. This is a very good song. Now, if they want to like peel some of the onion layers back and see like what it's about, okay, that's a whole nother conversation. But the song's just a good song.
Yeah.
And, I commend you for standing by you and your health, because that'd have been a hard decision to make, man. Because full disclosure, man, I got the vaccination. I never got a booster. I decided, well, if the vaccination works like they said it's going to work, I should
Right. You
be
should be fine.
a-okay, right? And
Hmm.
then I had COVID before I got my vaccination, and it was scary. Like, it was bad, bad, bad. And so when I got the vaccination, I caught it like a year later, but it was like a 3-day thing, and I was like, oh, well, then it's probably doing what I need it to do. I don't want anything else, because I feel like at this point it's no longer a health thing; it's a business thing, and I don't care about Pfizer. I don't care about Johnson and Johnson. Like, those companies are giant evil corporations, as far as I know. And if I come to find that they're not, okay. But right now, I don't really want to put money in their pocket. I'm more concerned about putting money in my pocket so I can put bread on the table at this house.
Yeah.
And you do have to lead by example with your family. I got kids too, man. It's tough, man. It is
It's
tough. I
tough.
commend you for this stuff, man.
Well, thanks. And I don't have an opinion on what anybody wants to do for themselves or their family. That was my point. It's like, hey, everybody should be allowed to make their own decisions here. And there that was not an option. It was like there's one decision, there's the train has left the station, and you're either getting
Mm,
on it or you're left behind. And here's all the things you're losing. You're losing your community.
mm,
You're losing people you've worked with for 14 years.
good
Your
grief.
family is losing their families at the same time. We'll never see these people again. Like loss of income, like I don't make royalties off that band. Like I'm not, I didn't get any severance. I'm not, it's just, you're just cut off. You're done, so you got to pivot overnight. And so I get that speaking out is not for everybody. It's gnarly. It absolutely comes with a cost. My family is still recovering from that cost. But to me, looking back 2 years later, absolutely worth it. Like
Well,
everyone
you
I'm
did
working with
it.
right now, yeah, I love and respect. And, it's exciting.
Absolutely, and you did it with respect. I didn't. I've read quite a bit in the last couple of days just to, get information, and I've not seen a single negative thing that you'd ever said. And I hadn't heard
No.
anything beforehand, which is why I was surprised when I got the question from a buddy of mine. I was like, what? So like, I don't know, man. You can stand up for yourself and be respectful. That's not hard to do.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's like, no, we don't need to be divided on things. We should be able to have conversations where we disagree on stuff and be civil about it. Like, it doesn't have to turn into a fist fight, and it doesn't have to turn into, well, you believe something I don't, so we can't be friends anymore. Like, I've got plenty of people that don't agree with me on all this stuff that are still huge parts of my life, close friends, family. We do. We talk about something else. Like, that doesn't have to be a deal breaker because you don't perfectly align with everybody, but politically, that's what it's been turned into.
Well,
Even
we're
the
all turned into that. We're all
yeah,
turned into like they want us to all be the exact same thing. It used to be we were okay being different. Keep Austin weird, man. That was a bumper sticker I saw forever. And now it's like, no, you got to be just like me, or else I don't like you. And that goes for both sides of the arena here, man. Like
absolutely.
liberals and the conservatives are both doing the same thing, and neither of them see it. I'm over here in the middle going, yo, I'm the one that's the bad guy now. Like, what are we talking about?
Mhm.
And it's a weird world we're living in, and I don't know, it's going to take more people standing up and talking about it to make the proper adjustments and change. And I don't know what the answers are necessarily. I know how to behave, but
Yeah.
like I said, lead by example and see what we can do. It's just
Yeah, I don't know what the answers are, but screaming and fighting is not it. Like,
for
and
sure.
and that doesn't get anything accomplished. Like, if we're all down here among the people screaming and fighting and yelling and pointing, the people in charge are getting away with whatever they want, you
Dude,
know?
that's what
So
they want. This is the age old right here, man. That's what they want. They want division amongst the regular folks so that the 1% of the 1% can just get wealthier and fatter and happier and in more control. And then before you know it, we don't have any say so. We don't have any food. We don't have any money. We don't have any way to live. I mean, I'm worried about 10 years from now when my son's only going to be a 20-year-old young man, and that's my oldest. I'm very
Mhm.
concerned about that. I'm very, very worried about what's going to happen by 2034.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, like, what kind of world are we leaving for our kids? And
Hmm,
I like to say, it's easier to fight for the right to keep your rights than to fight to get them back. Because,
100%.
there's always a new emergency and always a new catastrophe where it's like, "Oh, well, we just need to curb your rights here just for now," but, you don't get those back. Like, it's not like they just turn around and go, "Okay, it's over. Here you go back to normal."
I
And
was
it
talking to some people at work about that. I'm so sorry. I just walked right
no,
over what you were saying.
not at all.
These guys were talking about the mask mandate. And this is, almost 2 years ago at this point. But I was like, I don't want mandates. So like you're wearing a mask. And I'm like, yeah, I'm polite. Like I'm gonna wear a mask because it's likely that it's helping somebody somehow. It's not even guaranteed. It's just likely, right? But I don't want mandates. Like we should just do it to be kind. And
Yeah, you're
then when
wearing it
it's
because you
done,
want to. Yeah.
yeah, and then when it's done, it's done. You don't want to wear one, you want to be that guy, fine. I'm not going to mandate you to do it, but I sure wish you would because it's kind of ridiculous, right? But once you give up the right to not do it, you no longer that's never coming back. And I try to explain to the young people because that's the ones that are fighting for the mandates is the younger generation because they think of it as like a well, we're helping by making you do this and you don't understand it's good for your health, but we're gonna lead this. It's like, well, hold on, I've been alive twice as long as you. I'm not a complete moron. I know some things. Let's not make it a law. Let's just encourage it and then see what happens. And then we learn from our mistakes. And that's how everything improves is mistakes. You learn more from losing than you do from winning.
Absolutely. Yeah, you always learn more from failure. And the the younger generation, I think they feel good, but it's just kind of empty virtue signaling. It's just like, "Oh, I'm on board with the current thing. I'm checking all the good people boxes." And, you know, that that's a dangerous thing to get caught up in because if you're not thinking and you're just blindly following the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, then, at some point you're gonna have to draw a line. And I think right now we're training everyone to kinda turn their brains off and shaming everyone into
Hmm.
not having a dissenting opinion because it's dangerous, and look what'll happen to you. Look at the example we made of this guy or that person, or, here's what happens when you don't wanna get on board. And if you've gotta threaten and coerce people into your message, then your message sucks. You know,
Facts.
there's nothing behind it, and get a better message. So
100%. And I think there's something to be said for standing up for what you believe in, becoming a whatever pseudo martyr, whatever you want to call it, becoming the example made. Because once you, like you said earlier, once you come through that, on the other side of that, you're gonna find out who your real friends are. But people will see, oh, wait a minute, he did what I wanted to do, and it was temporarily uncomfortable, and now he's back to doing his thing. Huh.
mhm.
And some people are gonna start reacting and falling into that type of
I hope so.
behavior.
Yeah, I mean,
I think so.
we can't have our I am Spartacus moment where everyone starts standing up until someone is the first person to do it. And, you know,
Let's go.
yeah, so the more people that can go, "Hey, I don't agree with how all this is going down. This all feels weird. I have questions." Like, just even saying I have questions get you
Yes.
torched. So, I'd like us as a society to be able to get away from that and go back to having conversations again and discussions, and not just screaming our pre-approved talking points at each other and
Hmm.
changing no ground. I'm all for meeting somebody where we overlap. Like, let's find common ground and start there, you know?
Oh, there's always going to be some common ground because we're all human beings. And
Yeah.
so look at all the people that we look at as like great thinkers and great people with great ideas. They were all thought of as lunatics when they were alive, right? Like not all of them,
Mhm.
but a lot of them were. And it's like, don't you look at that and realize that maybe following like the herd is not the right idea because this dude wasn't following the herd and now it's the guy that you look up to, yet
Mhm.
you still want to it's a lot of contradictive thinking. And I'm not blaming anybody. You got to learn, you got to grow, I'm 41. I'm definitely smarter and better at this than I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But um, I think a lot of people are afraid to listen, afraid to talk, and are definitely afraid to question things. I'm very inquisitive and talkative, so I like that, and I'm okay with being wrong. Just show me where I'm wrong, and if you show me where I'm wrong, and you don't just tell me,
Mhm.
I'm more than happy to be like, oh damn, all right, a little egg on my face, wipe it off, and let's go. This it's fine. It's not
Yeah.
gonna.
I
It's
don't need to be right about stuff. I'm not one of those
no.
kinds of people, but I'd like to have a good discussion with somebody if they disagree. And not just like, if someone comes at me and they are committed to misunderstanding me from the jump, there's a waste of time. Like,
Yes.
if you're not open-minded to learning or the possibility that you're wrong here, and I'm not open-minded to that, then there's no conversation to be had. But we need to get back to that openness of going, I could be wrong here, but that's a perfectly fine way to have a conversation with somebody. But just going, you're wrong and you're crazy and I'm not going to hear your arguments and I'm not going to take anything you say and you need to go listen to more mainstream people, like that's not a conversation. That's a dictate. That's a mandate.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to be gleaned from that. Then no one's going to learn anything there.
100%. 100%, man. And I appreciate you being able to talk about it and being open. It's got to be tough still. I mean, that's a wound that's probably likely not all the way healed right now, but getting that
It's a
way.
Yeah, it much better now than a year ago, certainly much better than 2 years ago, but at the time, 2 years ago right now, absolute brutality.
Yeah.
Like, my wife and my kids, I wasn't
Mm.
left on my own at all. Like,
Dude, thank goodness
someone
for
kept an eye on me.
yeah, man. I'm so lucky that I have a family, man. I was a hot mess just being happy back then. I can't imagine going through like because I lost a whole ass business due to COVID, man. I don't know the extreme like maybe the degree that you had to go through, but I lost a business. I had a comic book shop, man, and I also lost a house to not a house, not my home apartment to flood a few years ago. So like,
Oh, jeez.
man, I don't what dealing with this kind of stuff in life without family. My point was is that that is we're
It's a
talking
dark
almost
place.
yeah,
Yeah.
very dark place, and that's where dark things come from. Addiction, self-harm, stuff like that come from depression. All that stuff is it's yeah, boy, this could turn into a very weird conversation, but let's shift it over to the band. I want to talk about the Defiant. um the band name is that's got to be like intentional, kind of talking about what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just our point of view as a whole. The 5 of us are very, like-minded on a lot of things, not everything, which is great.
Sure.
We should have differences of opinion, differences of ideas, but we kicked around lots and lots and lots of names. I mean, you've done it. It's a hard thing to name your band.
Yes.
And, and so when we kind of circled around to the Defiant, it just seemed to fit the tone of the music and the tone of the band and the message, because we're not angry people, we're not angry Defiant, we're like defiant against what's happening in the world and wanting to bring a message of unifying people. Like, we're all about bringing people together. Every song, even if we're pointing out something we disagree with in the world, it's not just bitching and moving on. It's like, here's how we can come together here. Hey, this thing happened, let's not let it happen again. So yeah, the way that the band even came together was really organic and very cool. I was filling in with Face to Face, who I
Okay.
hadn't played with in like 20 years, but their drummer got really sick all of a sudden, and they had like 3 shows opening for Jawbreaker, and it was like, hey, we can't rehearse. Can you you played these songs 20 years ago? Can you learn a couple of the new songs and we'll just go for it? And it was super fun. It was like putting on a soft shoe and going back. So I love Trevor and Scott. Like, we've been friends a long time. Those guys are the best. So while I was out there in LA doing that, I got a text out of nowhere, and it's like, hey, this is Dickie Barrett. Do you have a minute to
It's
talk? Right. And it's like, all right, that's weird, but sure, let's see what this is about.
That's awesome, dude.
Because I mean,
Uh,
and when you go through something like this, you learn to come from a place of, well, I'm open to anything. Like, sure,
mhm.
yeah, let's see what this is about. And
Well, when I saw who was in the band, I already kind of knew. Well, there's a link there. I knew
yeah,
that. I was like, there's a link there. I was like, so this should be interesting. And then when I ran into Johnny, I was like, let's go.
yeah,
Because talk about getting unfairly treated, man.
yeah, and
Dickie
just
Barrett got shafted, bro. Like,
his was way more public than mine. I mean, he had the whole ABC Disney apparatus breathing down his neck. So that guy, he's got balls of steel, because he stood up to, an entire corporation. I stood up to a band. He stood up to, an entity, and held his ground. And so it was really, he called me and we had a really great conversation, and he's like, hey, do you know Greg Camp? And I'm like, well, I know of him, but I've never met, but I sure know his songwriting. And he's like, well, I think the 3 of us would work together really well. Call me when you get back home to Nashville. He's like, Greg's in Nashville too. I want to get you guys together and let's see what happens. And then, a couple of days later, he's like, I want Johnny Rio to play bass. And I was like, all right, because I knew Johnny from Street Dogs. And then, Dickie's writing songs with people, and he's writing songs with Joey LaRocca, Joey Briggs.
yeah.
And so he's like, we got this song and we got the second song. He's like, and everybody was like, well, why don't we just see if he wants to come in as the 5th? Because, it'll round out the sound and just make everything more cohesive. So once it was the 5 of us, then it was just kind of, we're off to the races. Everybody's spread out. So it was a lot of like sending files around and stuff. But the bulk of the record was made here in Nashville, both here at my studio and at Greg's studio,
Okay.
and then mixed out in LA by TJ Rivera, that works with Tim Armstrong and Rancid and lots of
Let's
people out there.
go.
So yeah, he went and pieced everything together, which was awesome. But it's just been a real interesting ride, because you start a band, you never know what's going to happen. A lot of stuff doesn't get off the ground. But the more we started writing and the more we started sending files back and forth, it really started taking shape into something that felt special. And it certainly felt special for me, having felt creatively stunted in my last gig.
Mm,
When you're just serving one person's vision all the time, there's not a lot of room for you to put any of yourself in there. And with this
absolutely.
band, there weren't any rules. It was just like, hey, everybody bring the best of yourself, and let's make something special. And that, so for me, it really reinvigorated my creative side, which I didn't even know that I had needed.
Mm,
But when you're doing the same thing over and over for so long, you kind of forget the fun parts of why you started creating in the first place. You can get caught up
absolutely.
in the commerce of it all and forget about like the heart and soul of it. So it was very much a creative rebirth for me with this band, to just be tracking drums here and vocals here, and like hearing all the songs come together was really
Excuse me.
exciting. Yeah,
That's
no worries.
amazing, dude. Hell yeah, man. Because everybody in the band is somebody that I like. So I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like,
It's a
what a
crazy lineup, yeah,
it
and
really is, man. Because I love the Briggs, man. Like, bro, and the Boss Tones, man. I've been listening to them. So my favorite band is Rancid, and I've been listening to them since about 95, maybe early 95. I was like 13 or 14 when I first heard them. And the Boss Tones, man, I found them very quick, and I liked their music. I don't remember when I came across the Briggs stuff, but it's been a long time. I've been listening to them for a long time. The one album where they're sitting outside with I think they have a suitcase. I can't remember what it's. I know what it looks like, but I used to listen to that album like in my car daily. It was just stuck in my CD player, man. Not literally, but just always in there. And yeah, it's a fantastic lineup. I can't wait to hear the rest of the record. Is there any kind of date you can give out, or is it still up in
it
the air with the album?
it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah,
We're finalizing it right now, so we'll make an announcement here shortly as soon as we've
that's
got
awesome.
all our ducks in a row. But yeah, it was just
Yeah.
really important for us to get a first song out there because, like you said, we've been talking about the band since about January, and like there's this thing happening, and we've got T-shirts and hats and things, but it's like, well, we got to get some music out there, but record companies and lining things up, it takes time to roll things out the right
Who are
way.
y'all signed with,
So we're with
or are
a
you?
company
Remember?
called Acceleration Music. So
Okay.
they're kind of like a collective of other indie labels and stuff under
Okay.
one umbrella. So yeah, we're working with them,
Nice.
and so yeah, the whole record, it will be out this year. I will tell you
Let's
that right now.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, dude. Well,
Um,
that's only a few months away at the most then, because uh I was trying to get my top 10 albums of the year ready. Like that's something I want to do like middle of December for a video. And I was saying like if this album drops, I can't imagine that it won't be. If the album is even, let's say, 75% as good as that song that y'all dropped, I would be pretty sure it would be up top two or three, man. That song's so fun, man. The recording quality is fantastic. And the mix was really well done. The lyrics, like I said, man, I can't believe he wrote all of that. That's freaking nuts to me.
Yeah.
But
Well, if you like Dead Language, I don't think you'll be disappointed by the record. So
nice, man.
that's all I can say. I mean,
That's
everyone's
awesome.
taste is going to vary, but
Sure.
I'm excited to get it out there, and we want to get it out there sooner than later. So
You know
it'll
how when I'm sorry.
no.
You know how when they put out a snippet of a song and you're like, what's this gonna sound like? So like when I heard the little snippet, I was like, all right, because I know where it is in the song now. And I was like, okay, so what part of the song could this be? And then when I heard the whole track, I was like completely left on tilt because I just didn't expect it to go the direction it went. Yeah. I love the first few listens of a new track, especially a good one. Uh that's kind of how it felt with the new Rancid album this year. I listened to it and was like, what the hell is going on? Um there's a bunch of new music coming out. Excuse me, a bunch of new music that's coming out that's really good right now. I think that yeah, I think we're in a time. That's the silver lining, I think, is that we're going to get a lot of good art, a lot of good music.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, art comes out of tough times, good art usually. But somebody asked me online yesterday, they were like, what are all these punk rock bands that, got on board with the narrative and can't scream against the government anymore? What are they going to sing about? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Let's find out.
It's weird. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, that like I feel like things have changed a little bit in a way that I never saw coming, because the government is exactly who's telling us to get all these shots. And like, look, I got one, but I didn't want to get a second and a third and I'm not doing all of that. I was just making a calculated risk. I was taking a calculated risk and doing the best that I could with the information I had.
Yeah.
And so, once that information kept coming and I got more of it, I thought, okay, well, at this point, I'm happy with what I've got. I'll stay here. Thank you. And uh, yeah, it is very strange to see people that I thought of as like anarchists almost telling you better go do this.
Yeah. Got to
All
get
all
on
right,
board
buddy.
with the man. Yeah.
It's
So
so weird.
it'll be
Oh,
interesting.
yeah,
But
well. So what are you guys using as inspiration when you're writing your music? What were you was there any particular process that you had? Did you is there any process that you have when you're writing music in general? Is the question I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, for me, you know, I I can't force anything creatively. Like you can't go, I'm going to sit down and write a song today. I think it's a lot of coming back to the plate day after day and just like, well, I'm going to see what happens. But with this music, an idea would crop up from somebody and, then somebody else would grab onto it and add to it. And then we'd start sending files around. And once everyone starts putting their stamp on it, then the sound of the band comes together. We did all the drums here at my studio, and a lot of, when we started writing and stuff, it was very freeing for me to just hit record and just record like first inspiration, first ideas, like first thing that comes to mind, and sift through it and see what's good. But it was so much better to have that kind of a process than the typical, you got to go in the studio, the clock's ticking and it's got to be perfect. So then
Right.
you start second guessing yourself, you start taking out everything that's the imperfections that give it personality. So the cool thing about this record was, by the time we had all these demos made and it was like, all right, well, let's hunker down and fine tune everything for the record, then we had a conversation of, do you want to redo the drums again? Like, what would you change? And I'm like, nothing. I would play the same thing again, just way more self-conscious. We have such a great vibe going with how all this feels. Let's just go with that. And so we just really kind of came from a place of organic inspiration and then built off of that, which was cool. Like there wasn't a lot of, whoa, overthinking or over perfecting. Like it feels like a real old school rock record played by humans, made by humans. Like, there's not, vocals aren't tuned within an inch of their life. Like everything's not perfect. Like it's cool. Like there's such a good kind of a punk vibe, even if it's not the most overtly heavy punk style of stuff. The way that it was made was very, very punk rock and very much along those lines. And we kept that spirit, I think, in each of our brains as we went along, which is like, keep this feeling real, keep this feeling human. Let's not overthink things. Let's, keep the energy, but also make sure that it's positive and it's unifying. And I think people that are predisposed to be angry that the band exists in the first place, I think they're going to be surprised if they give the record a listen. I think they will be surprised that it is not what they think.
Almost certainly. I think it's really good to stick with your like first instincts when doing any kind of art. At least for me, when I start doing anything, because I paint and stuff too, right? And I have this rule now, like if I'm painting something, let's say something abstract, right? And I come up with a background, and then I go, okay, what I want is I want this kind of a shape in the middle, and I want to use these 4 colors. Cool, let's go. I start painting on it. I start using different tools, and then I get to a point where I go, yeah, but it needs this. I have my wife that goes, hey, stop, and I have to stop. I have to stop, look at it, and if I feel like it looks good at a certain point, just stop, because you're going to overdo it. You're going to overthink it. You're going to get into like you said, much more self-conscious. Oh, but I need to make sure this little thing goes over here this far. No, 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 no. Somebody somewhere is going to look at that and go, "Ooh, that's perfect." So just stop. Just stop, and that's a good.
That's the
I
hard
think
part as an artist, though,
yes,
is to when is
yes,
it done? When is it
yeah,
done? And
dude,
it's like, well, it's
yeah,
done when you walk away from it. And
100%.
overthinking and over perfecting, I think, has just kind of destroyed music the last decade or so. And it's
Yeah.
so refreshing when you hear something that's a little dirtier, a little messier, a little nastier, just because it hasn't been run through the machine and slapped on the grid and auto-tuned all to death. So
Well,
I'm definitely more excited about messy music right now.
100%. When I talk to people about music, and we talk about, what do you listen to? And my answers are always, well, I like punk rock, I like a little ska and reggae, and I like some hardcore. And they're like, oh, do you like metal? And I'm like, I don't dislike metal. Like there's plenty. I mean, I'm wearing a Power Trip shirt. Like I like some metal, but like this is a great example of like metal that's written and sounds like it's played by dudes, because it is. They're dudes I know. And so uh that was my issue with like metal music, is that it sounds so robotic. Like it sounds like objectively good, but it doesn't sound to me like there's a human being involved sometimes. And that's my issue. That's what I like about, I don't want to dog on a genre. That's what I like about punk rock and rock and roll mostly, is that you can hear the little things that you go, oh man, I bet they heard that later. And we're like, but that's what makes it so memorable. Like you hear this like tick when it's supposed to be a talk, and you're like, oh man, that was a little bit different. And I personally really enjoy that, because that's a feeling you get at live music shows and stuff too, is the imperfections. Imperfections are good.
That there's a charm in the imperfections. The
Mm-hmm.
personality is in the imperfections. And when you take all of those out, then you get sterile, kind of surgical music. And I
Yeah.
get it. Like that's what's happening, and everything is polished and whatever. But just because that's what's been happening doesn't mean you have to go along with it. It's all right to go, well, I'm going to push back against that because I want this record to actually sound real and not fake. And
Yeah.
so that's where we're coming from.
When you look at fans of music, what are we always asking for? Hey, do you got any demo versions? Why do we want the demo versions? They're never as good.
No, they sound terrible, but yeah.
The Green Day Dookie 30th anniversary, I was just looking at that, but while I was eating breakfast this morning, I was reading up on just, whatever I could find on the internet to read on that was music related. And they were talking about they're fixing to release this like master 30th anniversary thing. And it's going to have like 2 discs of like demo version stuff. And I was like, yeah, that stuff's going to sound crazy bad. I kind of want to hear it, because that's when you get to hear them as people in there making the mistakes. I mean, I just found a version of I think it was Knowledge from Op Ivy. It was from '88. It was a live version. No, it was Unity. I'm sorry, it was Unity. But it was like a version that I'd never heard before. They played it live. They just happened to have like a really good quality sound recording of it. And I mean, it's fun, man. Like I want to hear different versions. I want to hear mistakes, because if all you have to put yourself up against is perfection,
yeah,
you're never going to try anything, man. You have to see, oh, the dude that I like is really great at this, but he is not perfect. Then maybe I can do that, maybe that's ridiculous, but it sounds like that's what motivates me. So
yeah, I hear you. I just think music is more inspiring to listen to when you can actually hear the personality, and not that the life has been beaten out of it and the quest for perfection. I think
yeah,
we lose a lot in that struggle.
I agree, man. I like I used to not like live recordings at all, but I've gone back on that a lot. I like to listen to live recordings. You get to hear a lot of different solos, different fills with the drummer, different choruses. I look back on some of these No Effects. I heard they suck live. That's the first live tape I ever personally owned, and I got a taste of it. It was like, I don't know if I like this or not, but I kind of do. It was when the sound's okay. That's the most thing I'm the most concerned about, is when the sound quality is at least good. After that, I'm happy. I want to hear the organic changes that come about when you're making music live, or playing it live, I guess.
Yeah, and when bands play live, I don't want to go see a band and have the whole show on tracks so that it's like, whoa, we sound just like the record. It's like, well, if I wanted to hear the record, I could stay home. Like
100%.
if I bought a ticket and I came out here to see you, let me see you, let me hear you, let me see what you're really doing. Make some mistakes, make a change, make something different. But so I it's always exciting to see a band that is just going for it, because there's so many shows now that Milli Vanilli got crucified for it years ago, but there's an awful lot of that going on in the world now. So
I never
those guys
thought of
took the
that.
beating.
Oh my goodness, they did. Oh my goodness, sorry.
Took their Grammys back,
Bro, I never thought of that. They absolutely did what a lot of people are doing now.
Yeah, but it's industry standard now, and we've got video screens and lights to be synced up, but you're just running a script every night instead
That's
of
funny.
performing for your audience. Everything is just exactly the same every night, and I like there to be room for spontaneity. I like to be able to,
Absolutely.
What happens in this song if the crowd's going off and the singer wants to stop and talk for a few minutes? If everything is already preordained, you can't take advantage of the spontaneity that happens during the show, and there's missed opportunities to connect with the audience.
Yes, that is exactly what I was going to say. Is banter is so important. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but Blink-182 has never been like widely considered a great live band, but they're also one of the best bands to see live because their banter is so fun. I mean,
Yeah.
Travis Barker's kind of amazing. So like watching that dude play live is great. But like just they're jokers. They're always joking around, so they're not taking it too seriously. They're not up there like maybe a metal elitist guy would be up there playing some shredding and have to have it, like you said, perfect. And so, but that's what makes their shows so much fun is
Yeah.
that you go out there and they're talking and they're being silly and they might play a different song. They might blend 2 or 3 songs together that you didn't know they were going to do that with. Green Day does that sometimes.
Yeah.
But so I want to ask a couple of fun questions before we go here. Just to get to know you a little bit better. What kind of music is your favorite? Do you have a few bands that you kind of always go to? I don't want to ask for like a top 5 or anything, but like a couple of bands that you love, you've always loved, and you're never going to stop loving.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a weird kind of eclectic dude with that stuff. Like I grew up on 80s hair metal. You
Okay.
know, I grew up in upstate New York. There wasn't a lot of access to other things. I got dragged into punk rock. I didn't know anything
Oh,
about it. But
nice.
so I grew up on like Queensryche and Metallica and Motley Crue and stuff like that. And then, when the Face to Face gig came up, it was like, all right, well, yeah, I can play this punk stuff. I've never done it before, but they were looking for more of a straight up rock drummer at the time too that could also do the punk stuff. So I kind of fell into punk rock through
That's
that.
cool.
But if I'm listening to music in general, if it's not something my kids have already picked in the car or whatever, I like stuff like Elliott Smith. My
Okay.
favorite like rock band is called Dinosaur Pileup from the UK,
Never heard
and
of them.
oh my god, dude, their guitar riffs are massive. They're so good.
Okay.
The last tour I did with Offspring in Canada in 2019, I was able to get Dinosaur Pileup on that to open, and they just
Nice.
shredded every night. They're so good. Those guys are awesome. Check them out for sure.
I will
Yeah,
100% check them out.
you will dig them. Like so heavy, so catchy. They're great. So they're like my favorite modern band for
Okay.
sure. And but I kind of go back to some old favorites. I'll bust out some Queensryche stuff and older Metallica stuff like that if I'm going to go listen to metal. But my youngest daughter right now is really into like video game music and lo-fi stuff, so she's turned me
Oh,
on
that's cool.
to all kinds of like really mellow kind of instrumental stuff. And then my older daughter has turned me on to a lot of really cool indie rock and singers like that. So through my kids, I discover stuff that I wouldn't come across, on my own through my day-to-day life. So I'm always open for something new that's gonna grab my ear and get my attention.
That's a very eclectic mix of stuff. I like a fairly wide variety of sounds and music. What I put my money into usually is more punk and hardcore stuff, just because if I want to own a physical copy, I generally want to have stuff that I really, really love. I just got a copy of Kill 'Em All cassette the other day, and I was like,
Nice.
dude, come on, man. I have the like it's real ridiculous setup, so I listen to cassettes a lot. But I like a genre of punk rock that I didn't know existed, which is called synth punk.
Hmm.
Like I guess it's like Devo, but like heavier.
Okay.
And like
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a bunch of bands that do this, and there are a lot of them. There's like a bunch of stuff coming out of France. Like I couldn't recall the names because there's a very large list of them. But like this the synth punk stuff, I'm listening to a lot of I just started listening to jazz like maybe a year ago and changed like 12, 14 months ago. I didn't ever think I would like jazz music. And I stumbled across some like old 70s stuff from Japan that I really, really gravitated towards. And then video game music is actually something I can edit in my videos to and stuff. So like there's a genre called funk, PHONK, that my buddy likes a lot that I've started listening to because of him. And there's all kinds of music out there, man. Like you can't be pigeonholed into one genre and have a very I don't know. I think if you're making music, you need to be willing to listen to a lot of different kinds.
Yeah, and that's where you're gonna draw inspiration from. It's
Yeah.
everything doesn't come out sounding like the same thing. So to me, again, it's like having a conversation with someone that disagrees with you. I'm gonna listen to music I've never heard before or wouldn't normally be my thing. I'm gonna learn something there. I'm gonna pick something out that I wouldn't have known before. So,
Yeah.
gotta try to be open-minded around all around, not
Right.
just in your
No,
conversations, but in your music and your art, your movies, whatever you take in. Like, check out stuff that you normally wouldn't do because there's something to learn in there other than just seeing something you've already seen before or heard before.
whenever I'm talking to folks at the bar and they're like, I look like I would listen to punk, and then they start asking questions about other stuff. They're always surprised by like my knowledge, I guess, a little bit, and then my tastes almost always. They're like,
Yeah.
you like Korean film? I'm like, love it, like almost as much as I do American stuff. And they're like, but don't you like shot on video crap? I'm like, I love that too. I'm like, Bong Joon-ho is great, and then I'll take some shot on video stuff from Trauma. Like, let's go. Like, I'll take both. Let me have all of it. But
Yeah.
music is my lifeblood, man. I need a lot of it. I need a lot of different kinds. I listen to Lady Gaga like a lot, dude. Like a
Yeah.
lot. It's so catchy. Like, why would you not want to? And she seems like a cool chick. I don't know her, so I don't know her personally, but she seems pretty rad.
She
Um,
writes a catchy song, you know?
Boy, does she. And
Yeah.
Adele, I like Adele a lot too. She sings very well. I didn't know she did that with her tour because I don't pay attention and stuff. But like her as musician, man, A plus.
Yeah.
I have a almost 9-year-old daughter. There's a lot of music that I didn't think I would like that I do like. And my coworkers give me crap because I genuinely like Justin Timberlake. Like I own
Yeah.
his albums and stuff. They're like, Justin Timberlake. I'm like, dude's rad, man. What do you not like about him? They're like, I'm like, exactly.
Yeah.
You can't
Exactly.
tell
Yeah.
me what
It's
you
like
don't like about him.
if you can't form into words why you don't like something, then you just haven't given it any thought. You've just already decided that you don't like it for whatever reason. And to me, I'm just like, well,
Yeah,
that's just a boring way to be, you know?
100%, man.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite drummer? Do you have one? Was like, okay, how'd you pick up drums first, and then who's your favorite drummer?
I started playing drums when I was a little kid because my dad was a middle school, high school band director. And
Nice.
so, and I had two older brothers, and one of them played the clarinet and one of them played the saxophone. And I didn't want to have to learn all the fingerings. I thought that looked really
Sure.
boring and stupid. And I had already been like building drum sets with pots and pans and banging on stuff since I was a kid. So I was like, well, I'll
Nice.
play drums. That way I don't have to learn all the dumb fingerings. It'll be easy. And, so I got away with that, but then kind of fell in love with it, along the way and found that I was, had a little bit of natural talent towards it enough that, got me started to really dig in and work on because drumming to me is interesting because it's really a solitary effort a lot of the time when you're learning something and when you're learning, separating your limbs and you're building your independence. Like, it's a lot of playing the same thing over and over and over and over, which is why, these walls are three walls thick here in the house, because if I'm playing the same thing all day, I don't want my wife upstairs going, "Oh my God, I can't stand it." They
Right.
don't have to hear it. But so learning drums that way, you just kind of, you spend that time on your own and you run for a while and then you hit a wall and you work through that wall and you run again. And, it's like learning anything. So I had just kind of gotten, I played drums. I had a band. I wasn't any good. We weren't very serious. And then I saw one of my dad's students who was a year older than me play. And, I'm from a tiny town of like 1,000 people in upstate New York.
Oh
So this
wow.
kid from the next town over, I go see him play and he's looks like everybody on MTV at the time, just shredding, playing everything. And I'm like, oh, I always looked at those people and thought I could never do that. I could never play like that. And seeing this guy that was like a year or two older than me playing
Yeah.
exactly like that, it was a light bulb. And the next day I went home and practiced. And I remember I said to my dad, I'm like, hey, you got this. I went and saw a band last night. Do you have a kid named Mick in your school? And he's like, oh, yeah, he's a really good drummer. I'm like, why did you never tell me about him? And he's like, well, Mick's really serious and you haven't been. So I was like,
you know,
yeah. And you're like, all right, ouch, but fair. And
the
but
dads
after
will
that,
let you have it.
yeah, and after that, that was my whole world was drums. Like, I just would come home from
Yes.
school every day. I was practicing and I was working through, and then I got to be really good friends with Mick, and we actually moved to LA together when I got out of high school, and he was my mentor. I mean, to this day, still my favorite drummer that I've ever seen, Mick
That's amazing.
Palmisano. And yeah, and it was brutal for me a year and a half ago. He had ALS and passed away in March of
Oh
last
no.
year. And it was just, I mean, devastating for his family, but devastating for everybody that loved him. And like, so I still go back and listen to stuff that he played on and watch old videos of him playing because, even 30 years later, I'm still learning something from him. And, my early years of playing were really modeled after how he played the drums. And then through, moving to LA and going to music school, I got to be really good friends with Ray Luzier, who's now drummer for Korn. And so he was one of my teachers at school in LA. And when I graduated, I ended up moving in with him for a couple years. So it was funny that, we were roommates and drummers and stuff back then 30 years ago. And now he still lives 10 minutes from me here in Tennessee.
Nice.
And, and I still see him all the time, and he's super. I mean, he's phenomenal. So anytime I get to watch him play, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to learn something new today because he's innovating. He's always bringing something new, which is what I liked about my friend Mick was he never played the boring thing. He never approached a song from a ordinary place. And I try to carry that through to like, sometimes you're doing a pop song and it's got to be pretty straightforward, but I try to always find one spot to make sure there's something interesting for myself in each song if I'm recording or playing it live or whatever. You got to keep yourself entertained even if no one else notices that little flourish or the little thing you throw in, like nothing obnoxious. You don't want to be blowing a giant fill over the vocal line or something, but
Right.
there's always a way to be a little more creative and not dial it back to be more palatable for everyone. I think that's where music kind of gets boring. So, but
That's
yeah, I mean,
awesome.
my favorite drummers were, like I said, Mick Palmisano, number one, and Ray Luzier. I love Scott Rockenfield from Queensryche, and I love John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. Stuff like that. So
Okay.
I'm kind of all over the map with that stuff. I'm not a big jazz guy. I love watching people play jazz that are good at it.
Okay.
Not my thing, but,
Yeah,
I
it's
love
hard
people
to
that
get
can do
into.
it. Mhm.
Dude,
Yeah.
what an awesome story though. What a great story. You said you're at least somewhat familiar with Street Dogs. Did you ever know Pete Sosa that played with them for a while?
I met him, I think I met him. Street Dogs did a tour with Offspring in 2009, like, right after I joined the band. They were out with us for, like, a week and a half or 2 weeks. So it was a long time ago, but I think Pete was drumming for them then, if I'm not mistaken. So I know that I came across him and Johnny and
Yeah.
stuff back then, but yeah.
That's my all-time favorite drummer, man. He was my old drummer, and he he was it was the so I had played in a couple of bands before he was my drummer. Like I just met him. He was like friends with my girlfriend and was like this young kid. And she's like, "Hey, I know this drummer. He wants to start a band." And I was like, "Let's do it." And we just like and we clicked. He was like really awesome. And shout out to Pete Sosa, man. If you ever see this dude, like he was the first dude that like was serious about music. Like when we got in there to play, like it was different because we'd be all fucking around, man, just being idiots. And he's like, "No, no, no, dude, I gotta get this part down." And he's like, "I want to practice." And we were like, all right, let's get to practice. And he was so good, man. Like I remember like just being like, "Dude, what the hell?" So like I was never surprised when he got picked up by Street Dogs when he went out with Roger Merritt and like the things he's done. Not even a little shocked, man. I love that dude. What a great dude he is, man, and an awesome drummer, man.
That's awesome.
Hell yeah, dude. Pete Sosa rocks, man. The guy's awesome. Uh, yeah, man. Well, shoot, dude, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, man. I'm still learning
Yeah.
this craft, so I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and thanks
Absolutely.
again for checking out the music. Really appreciate it.
100%. One last question for you, real quick. When the album does drop, I will be doing a review on it. Do you guys have a tour at all, maybe in the works or something,
We
or
are
no?
we are working on,
Okay,
trying to get a bunch of shows lined up, nothing set in stone yet. So
sure, sure. But it is
we're
something that you're looking to do. We can hopefully see y'all play live at some point soon.
yeah, absolutely. That's in the works. It just the last few months have just been pushed to get,
Yeah,
everything ready, artwork and the mixes and getting, stuff lined up for the single. It's just been a lot of busy work. So now that we've got a song out and we're building towards the album release, we'll be announcing shows and stuff and getting all that
awesome.
in order. So
Anywhere near Houston, Austin, San Antonio, I'll be there. So I appreciate that, man.
awesome.
Well, hell, dude, I appreciate your time. Maybe one of these days I'll reach back out. We can talk again if you have the time and desire. So
Yeah, anytime.
thank
Hit me
you
up.
so much, man. Good luck out there. If you need anything that I can help with, or if you have another project that you want promoted, shoot me an email, man. Let me know. I'll help in any way I can.
Thanks so much.
Awesome, man. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too, buddy.
All right.